This truly bizarre photo was sent in from someone who followed our last channel. Here's the photo. I'll read the email sent with this so you understand the context. Hey Smokey, my name's Bruce. Most people call me Buck. I'm sorry to hear about your last channel. I'm glad you're still doing what you do here though. I've got a photo taken by a buddy of mine last summer that you might find interesting. I asked him if he wanted to write his encounter to email to you, but man, he still don't even want to think about the thing he saw to this day. He hasn't even gone 100 feet from his house since. His name's Jed, by the way. He told me to send you the picture he took so you can share it on your channel. Long story short, he was out on his 200-plus acre property in Kentucky clearing some trails. He has a four-wheeler he takes to get around the land. Anyway, when he gets over to the creek, he's seen some trees bending in the distance and something making a bunch of ruckus. So he goes over there full speed in his four-wheeler, and he notices what he called a skunk ape darting across the creek, running away from the four-wheeler. He brought his phone with him because at first he thought it may have been some kids trespassing, and he managed to snap a pic of the thing. It's a bit blurry, but whatever the hell that was is not a bear. I zoomed in on the creature so you can see what I'm talking about. I can't say much more in it because I wasn't there. I'm still new to the whole Sasquatch terminology and stuff. Actually, he's the guy that introduced me to the idea that these beings may very well be real when he showed me your old channel. He said he will eventually send you the whole encounter when he feels more comfortable talking about it. He asked if you want to phone call with him. Anyway, Smokey, I hope you see this. My buddy would appreciate it greatly. Thanks. Well, thanks for sending that in, Buck. Well, yeah, that definitely is something to make you think. Tell Jed I said thanks for sharing that, and I'd be happy to talk with him when he's ready. We all hope he can move past that terrifying encounter ASAP. This next encounter may explain some of the most common unanswered questions we have about Bigfoot. Why don't we find any remains? Do they bury their dead? So please, grab a cup of coffee and enjoy this walk through Sasquatch territory. Back many years ago, I used to think Sasquatch were nothing more than a made-up legend to tell around a campfire to spook your friends. Or a tourist trap for those who love the outdoors to have an excuse to buy funny knickknacks and gag gifts. I'm a Vietnam vet, and when I realized that these beings are real and nothing like how the public propagates them to be, goes back to when some fellow troops mentioned the rock apes and their violent aggression towards the soldiers. They called them the rock apes because they lingered around caves and threw what they had in their rocky surroundings at the men. I never saw any firsthand during the war. It wasn't until after, when I thought things would be normal again. The average person would never be able to stomach what I witnessed on that day. I appreciate it if you plan on sharing this. Although it's grim, encounters like this need to be shared, so people can truly understand the nature of these beings aren't all sunshine and rainbows. It isn't likely that you're going to walk away from a Sasquatch encounter with a smile on your face thinking, "Yippee, I finally saw a Bigfoot." In reality, encounters usually end along the lines of asking, "Why me?" while running for your life and wishing you didn't see what you did. The cold hard truth is that these things are so terrifying, they will traumatize you for the rest of your days, and anybody who's encountered one will know exactly what I mean. Now I'll tell you about my encounter. It was back about 1977. The war in Vietnam was over and my part in the military was through. I was trying to find who I was again. I welcomed a serene and quiet life and tried my best to live like a normal and healthy individual, although after Nam, I was sure as hell a work in progress. One of my ways to escape the shit pit of severe PTSD was to spend more than enough time outside in nature and be one of those tree huggers. I would go to loads of different nature preserves and take in the fresh air and wonders of Mother Nature. There was one particular forest that was not so tranquil, and I still refused to return to it to this day. It was a forest abundant in evergreens, and it was so dim and dense that it would give the illusion that the weather was overcast and gloomy, even if there wasn't a cloud in the sky. There was never a single human soul any of the few times I went there, and it was no surprise. The trails were steep, rocky, and overgrown. I suppose the only reason why I liked to go to the area was the dead silence. It gave me peace to occasionally be in complete isolation. The last time I went there, I was going up a trail I never tried before. The rocks were sharp and not easy on the foot. You really had to watch your step. And the thorns snagged at my jeans, making it difficult to keep on moving forward. It should have been my first sign to turn back when I did. It seemed to get more difficult the farther I got. Although I was in very good shape at the time, I was out of breath. My limbs were beginning to feel as if they were made of lead, and I was experiencing an extreme, lightheaded, dizzy sensation. I couldn't go on anymore. I thought to myself, good lord, am I getting old or what? To my convenience, there was a large fallen tree that I took a seat on. I rested for a moment and took the time to catch my breath and feel a bit more grounded. Through my gasping, I heard calls that sounded similar to foxes, but in a lower frequency. Something about the way they sounded made my blood run cold. They sounded like they were far away, but it felt as if they were coming from directly behind me. I whipped my head over my shoulder more than once, but nothing was ever there. A good 10 minutes had gone by, and as I observed my surroundings with more attentiveness, I noticed something a bit off. The tree I was seated on was only one of many fallen trees. Most of them didn't exactly look like they had just died and toppled over. They appeared to be perfectly healthy and sturdy trees that were broken by something with an intention. They were stacked in ways that formed hexagon-like shapes. I counted about 8 of these structures. They certainly were no accident. They were placed so accurately and precisely. That jolt of discomfort when you realize you're standing in an extreme danger zone suddenly hit like a bullet. The moment I was coordinated enough, I got up and headed back down where I came from as the discomfort still lingered over me. There was a certain part of the trail that was narrow and along a steep drop-off. I was leaning against the large boulders to ensure my balance as I was slowly moving onward. I had a view of a fairly shallow valley beneath me, and through the trees I spotted 2 large, furry brown figures crouching over another massive heap of fur. I thought they were bears at first, but the more I stared, I realized that they were creatures far from any wildlife I've seen. They were bipedal, with many other human-like characteristics. They had hands and feet with long fingers and toes, with little to no hair on the face and chest area. Their skin was rough and dry-looking, with the coloring much like an ape's. I figured out that the calls I was hearing earlier were coming from them. They hollered off and on as they beat upon their chests. It didn't take long before I realized that these creatures had blood all over their hands and face, and that heap of fur that I mentioned, well, it was the same color as them and approximately the same size. So I'm assuming it was one of them, and they were mercilessly eating from it. I watched in horror as they used their long arms to mutilate and rip the carcass to pieces. The sound of their massive jaws crushing through the bones of their own kind disturbed the silence of the forest. I prayed to God that they wouldn't see me as I tried my best to move away from the scene as stealthily as I could without falling or being seen. As soon as I got out of that precarious area, I ran like hell and didn't look back. I managed to get out of there all right. I got in my truck and never returned to a place with a single tree that belonged to that forest again, and still haven't to this day. I still go outside sometimes, but ever since then it hasn't felt like the peaceful escape it used to be. I usually end up feeling more on edge than I did before going out, especially when I see potential evidence of a Sasquatch or hear strange unknown calls. They're out there, and I hope everybody will be aware and stay safe. Rucker. Wow, Rucker. I'm sorry you had to witness that, man. Every one of us here appreciates you for sending that in. It may come as a shock that they eat their own dead, but oddly enough, archaeologists and anthropologists have concluded that some of the ancient hominids before us ate their own as well. Stone cut marks have indeed been found on bones from Homo erectus in several instances, and people wonder, where are the dead remains of Sasquatch? Well, this may very well answer that question. Thanks again, Rucker. Folks, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for everything you do. God bless, stay safe.